We're broadcasting here from the Wild and Scenic Media Lounge, and our home base is actually at KVMR, so it's exciting to be based here in our new digs, and it's just great to have you here with us. If you haven't been to Wild and Scenic, you got to come down because it's the largest film fest of its kind. It's like all these extraordinary people who are doing amazing things in the world just come together. And it's just fascinating. Have you, I mean, right? Like just meeting all the different people.
So we met so many folks last night that are doing awesome things.
They're all doing something
lives.
really specific and amazing. I'm excited to introduce Shawnecee Schneider and Kevin Campion. And their film is called The Unknown Sea, A Voyage on the Salish. So, okay, first of all, where's the Salish? Shawnecee. You're up, Shawnecee. And then we'll
the Salish Sea is the name for the inland sea that is within British Columbia and Washington state. So a lot of people think of that area just as more specific names, and the names people are familiar with is the Puget Sound, San Juan Islands, Gulf Islands, Straits of Georgia, and Straits of Juan de Fuca. But it also the name sort of encompasses a lot of the watersheds in the area as well.
Okay. So you told us a little bit about the film last night, but we'll have a little bit of a do-over on that. Tell everyone who hasn't seen about your film and what was your motivation in creating it too.
So we'll start maybe with the motivation, and really we just wanted to get the name Salish Sea in the public sphere. We want people to recognize it. I'm from Seattle, Washington, which is right on the beach of the Salish Sea. You know, I can walk 5 minutes and be on the shore of the Salish Sea. Yet my neighbors, if I say, "Oh, I'm going down to the Salish Sea," they're like, "Okay, where's that?" You know, people just aren't familiar with the term, and you know, it's a new thing as of 2005. That's when it got this designation, the Salish Sea.
Why did they designate that, by the way, as the Salish Sea?
So the legal reason to designate it was kind of a long, convoluted thing, but really it was for ecological reasons. So this guy, Bert Weber, who we interview in the film, was part of a research community that in the 80s did all these baseline studies to, it was a very comprehensive way to look at the Puget Sound, Straits of Georgia, Straits of Juan de Fuca, to just kind of realize what was there. We were about to build a couple oil export and import terminals as Alaska oil got explored. All that oil comes down into what is now the Salish Sea. And they wanted to know what was there in case we had an oil spill, so we could know what we lost. And in looking what was there, they realized that, well, the far north end of this place, up in Desolation Sound, and the far south end, down in Olympia, are all working as a whole together. It's a system with predictable patterns that you can see based on, you know, nutrient cycling and freshwater flow and all this stuff that's kind of boring is when you look at it, you know, specifically. But as a whole, you look at it, and there's this ecosystem here that was never recognized with a name. You know, it just had all these little parts that people knew. And where that really becomes important, and really where we thought it was important to make the film, is if you're going to make policy decisions about the Puget Sound or Desolation Sound or Olympia, you really have to think of the whole thing. You know, you have to think of the Salish Sea as a whole. If you're going to, you know, create a wastewater treatment facility for Seattle or Victoria, which is happening right now, you need to understand that where you put your outflow pipe, you know, up in Canada affects your fish catch and crab catch down in Seattle.
Yeah,
so
it's all connected.
Exactly.
Yeah, and so with the binational ecosystem, I think it's really unique.
So tell everyone how you wanted to capture that in your film, you know, and how the kids were involved as well.
That's cool. I think for us, it was just really trying to make this idea of renaming a place accessible to the audience. It's a difficult concept for people. And so I think for us, having this platform of Orion, the sailboat that's featured in the film, and have these young people on board, it also then appeals to a wider audience. And so for us, we wanted to voyage, so sail to these interviews and talk to these people that were really critical in getting this place recognized. So Bert Weber is one of them. And then also just a few other scientists that really are focused in that area and have a sense of what's there. And so for us, that was the way that we were able to kind of get the message to the audience, because it is strange to be like, oh, there's this new name, but it still has all the old names. So don't worry.
What were some of the old names?
Well, just the Puget Sound.
The Puget Sound. Okay, so the Puget Sound was just like that
it's
whole
part
body
of
of
the
water.
Salish Sea.
What?
It's weird.
What you spoke a little bit about this with the renaming, but like why did they felt like it was important to rename it and give it this protection? Like as Puget Sound, they didn't feel like it was getting that protection and to be recognized.
Exactly. So it is confusing because all the names are still there. So Puget Sound is still there. Straits of Juan de Fuca is still there. But collectively now.
Got it. Because those are all different parts. I get what you're
Exactly,
saying.
yeah.
Great Lakes.
I get it now, guys.
That's what we
I
say
totally
to
get it.
people
But
a
it-
lot.
Yeah.
But it's like, if you went to the doctor because you had a foot ache because you got dizzy and fell down and sprained your ankle or something, he said, well, let's just fix the foot. Like it's just a way to look holistically at, there's a whole number of environmental issues that are taking place up there that I could talk at length at.
Sure.
But the biggest one I'll mention is just fossil fuel export now, especially with the lifting of the fossil fuel export ban and a number of other things. But to look at these, putting in these facilities or your shipping, how it moves through there, you need to understand that it's the whole ecosystem that's being affected. And really, Shawnecee mentioned this briefly, but the fact that it's binational makes it very complicated to get any sort of policy thing across because you're working with two different countries and a state and a province and all these different towns. So just having a way where I can be up in Canada and say, oh, this is the Salish Sea, I live on the Salish Sea, you live on the Salish Sea, having a collective way that everyone can think about
to help protect it. So, okay, so you did things like snorkel in the Salish Sea, and that sounds pretty cold. But what were some of your discoveries even in doing that, or some of the people that you're interviewing that surprised you, especially knowing that you guys, live in this area, and, sometimes the things that are right under our nose, we aren't even aware exists.
I think for me, one of the things, since I'm from the Chicago area.
Yeah.
So, and I live down in San Francisco Bay now, but for me, I think it was, meeting the people that are like the scientists and these sort of experts that really know a lot about the area is, of course, really inspiring and important and gets, a message out clearly to the audience. But I think just being on board with the crew, so it was like either the camera crew or the people who are doing sound for us or the young people that we have on board, which one of them became the narrator for the film, which was actually an afterthought.
Yeah.
But I think having that crew of people on board, some of them, in particular, one of our shooters who was here last night at the screening, he'd never been on a sailing trip overnight. And so I think, and we took him out for 10 days, I think, and so I think for all of us to come together, this group of like someone like Kevin who runs this boat, and someone who's never been on an overnight trip to all go out together and get in the water or really take a look at this place in a way to film it and record audio to then get it out to people. It was just such a neat thing, I think, for us and really unique. And I think getting people in the water was also one of the highlights.
Huge.
That was our second shoot, and I think that it really changed everyone's, for me personally, it changed, like now snorkeling is one of my favorite hobbies. And I do it as much as I can, and it's really fun for me and really important. And that came from really doing the shoot. I just didn't expect that.
Yeah.
So.
And how did it change things for you, Kevin?
I think, the trip itself, we didn't go any place where I'd never been before. And in most of those places I've been to,
You're a sailor.
dozen times or something. Yeah, I spent a lot of time taking students around these areas, so I was also used to taking new people to these places and introducing them to it. But just thinking, going to these places, thinking about, all right, how are we going to tell this story of the whole? So as we went to Stewart Island or we go to, Wyatt Bay, I'm thinking, all right, how does that actually connect to Seattle? How does it connect culturally? How does it connect ecologically? So it was just a different way for me to travel through that place, with these different
Totally.
thoughts
And
in
also
mind.
have people who haven't experienced it before can change our own personal experience too,
Oh,
right?
so much, yeah.
Totally.
What do you want everyone to know who's watching this right now? What do you, either for them to take away or how to support this, giving them a reason to care and think, I really want to do something about this. What can they do?
So I think one of the most important things that messages in the film is to think about environmental policy and issues as an ecosystem. So consider the ecosystem, not the political boundaries. So if you consider just I've seen a rockfish distribution map that was done by a Canadian researcher, and there was a straight line along the Washington border that said no rockfish occur below that line. Well, that's just because they have funding from Canada, so they can't cross the border to see. So I just want people to realize that it's the ecosystem that in the end is going to dictate what we save and how effective we are at conservation. And so this is, it's a first step in having people consider the name and sense of place. It's a first step towards that larger goal.
It's kind of exciting too. It's kind of exciting. I mean, we're always creating new things, but to actually rename something like the film Mile for Mile, they're creating a national park. We don't think those things are still happening, right? Like branding something to protect it. Right. So it's really exciting. And what's the wildest thing that happened for you guys while filming this or as part of that process?
Can I add something really quick about it?
Yeah, totally.
I think for us too, one of the priorities of the Unknown Sea is to really get it into the classroom. And to have this film, if you watch our film, like it's fun and it's accessible to all ages and all audiences. But for us, we really wanted it to be accessible to young people because it's that and that's the group that we really want to educate to sort of for them to use this name for it to be normal.
Yeah.
And so I think that's one thing that people can do that are at this film festival is supporting media in the classroom in a way of filmmaking, to have young people be part of these projects. I think to have women be part of these projects, I think these are all really important things. And I think something like a festival like this that's been around for over 10 years is doing a really great job. I mean, if you look at the program, there's just a really great representation of a lot of people that are out there working. And for us in general, it was huge to really have it be focused on young people.
Yeah.
And that's something
great.
with both of our backgrounds, but.
That's exciting.
And I think, I don't know though, like the most crazy thing that's happened. I mean, I think just, it wasn't that crazy, but just doing some of the snorkeling trips, I think with all of us as the beginning, kind of forming this little crew of snorkeling, and it sort of really influenced your curriculum on board.
We take our high school students snorkeling now, which we didn't before.
Wow.
Yeah, and it's cool because for me, I used to work on Orion, but I used to teach film and video in Chicago to high school students. And then I got hired as crew, which we kind of always forget that part. And then we decided to do this film. So I think for me, that was a big, it was a big deal.
Yeah.
It was a risk. Right. So I think that also, and we founded the Salish Sea
Snorkel Club.
Club. So we're founding members. There's a handful of founding members, and it's a pretty wild organization.
Is the clarity pretty good?
Ooh, at times, yeah. It's actually usually, like right now, the winter is when the visibility is the best.
Okay, and that would be
but
really
it's pretty
hardcore.
Cold, yeah.
Okay.
But we went snorkeling in November, and I mean, it was, once you got down there, it was more clear.
Yeah, okay. That would be a little freaky if it was totally murky and you couldn't see much in there. True. But that's awesome. I think it's great. Well, and when's the film screening?
So
it's in Oddfellows Hall.
Yeah, tomorrow, the Oddfellows Hall in Grass Valley at 10 o'clock in the morning.
All right.
The coffee session,
Yeah.
You know those stories where the young kid finds a treasure map in an attic? Or a lost letter in an old book? I always dreamed one day I'd find a mysterious clue. This is the photo that started my adventure.
Il voulait fuir cette vie trop confortable. Elle tombe amoureux du voyageur et il lui dit « Je suis convaincu que l'on peut descendre le Colorado River en kayak. Les Américains jusqu'à maintenant ont essayé, mais avec des grosses embarcations. » Et elle dit « Moi d'accord. »
So few people had been down the river in those days, there was really no one they could turn to. And there was really no way out. If you had any kind of problem, you were just totally on your own.
What if the river still has traces of their expedition, just waiting to be uncovered?
As soon as I saw this, I'm going, oh my.
Maybe the voyagers without trace left us just enough.
If there's a diary, maybe it's still in existence.
We are part of this treasure hunt, this history detective mission.
To the river.
If you were to ask me, what is the Salish Sea? I would say the Salish Sea is a really highly productive inland sea. It's 17,000 square kilometers that is shared by Washington and British Columbia. Geologically, it's a relatively new place. It's only been formed here in the last 10 to 15,000 years. So it's just this really dynamic, outstanding place that's like being in a tropical rainforest, but you're in a temperate sea. So it's just a fantastically unique area.